Ready to go?
Here we go.
What is up, Screwballs?
What's up, Screwballs? Thanks for being here today. Good morning to you. It's the earliest live show we've done.
This is by far the earliest live from the Hill podcast we've done.
Probably the earliest we will ever do.
Well, we've done earlier podcasts, just never live.
Of course.
I know it's tough for everybody to pile in here on a Sunday morning. It's everybody's still piling in. We appreciate everybody that's here already, plus everybody's still to come.
It's tight quarters.
It's going to be a great show. We're going to take you right up to the Eagles, and then obviously we're going to hang out here after the Eagles game, especially me, for revelries, which I've already started.
Yeah, we'll be around for that, definitely. There's a lot of good games going on today, but we wanted to get into a lot of good things that happened over the last week, especially college football to get started. But there's a couple other things that we want to jump into that happened in the world of sports this week that were pretty interesting, and,
Yeah,
I think there's enough to sink our teeth in here to get us till 1 o'clock.
Yeah, so let's start with the big event here in the city during the week, and that is the Flyers unveiled a new mascot, and his name is Gritty.
Is everybody familiar with Gritty? Raise your hand if you're familiar with Gritty and if you've seen Gritty.
Yeah. Gritty is a giant orange Muppet with googly eyes and crazy hair, and he sort of looks like a cross between like Big Bird like Oscar the Grouch and the Fanatic. Like he's a little bit smaller. He's got the googly eyes, the hair everywhere,
And Jake Voracek and Justin Turner.
and half of the
Dodgers.
Flyers roster.
Exactly. So the beard thing, they got that going for sure. They definitely incorporated that in the design of Gritty. But when Gritty first came out, I think everybody took a look at him and they were horrified. I don't know if you felt the same way, but when I first saw Gritty, I was a little bit horrified.
All right. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So after the initial shock of Gritty coming out, how do you feel about Gritty now? Like for the rest of the season, are you okay with Gritty?
I really think that the area has rallied around Gritty.
Okay.
A lot.
Yeah. Well, of course, I won't give you the good straight man already, but that's where I want to go.
Well, there's a couple things that went into it. So the first being that he now has a Twitter account. And so Gritty has faced the backlash on Twitter, and he's come back in a strong way. He's very good on Twitter. He's a great follow so far. The other thing that I saw that his debut on the ice.
Hang on a second. I need you to hit that sweet spot.
All right, thanks, Jack. So his debut on the ice, he hits the back of his head.
He fell over.
Slides down, then proceeds to shoot one of the ice guys with a T-shirt gun. So it just kind of like it brought him into Philadelphia, and I think everybody warmed up to him really quickly. But most of all, I think they warmed up to him quickly because the national media took to Gritty, and there was a backlash.
Yes, I agree. So that's where I wanted to go. So personally, I didn't really mind Gritty. To me, mascots are for kids and entertainment, so it's like whatever. I don't care.
Well, it's funny you mention that because there were a lot of videos going around of parents basically terrorizing their children with Gritty. So children have not necessarily warmed up to Gritty as quickly as the parents have. So within the Flyers organization, I think there were some different a different mentality of how they approach Gritty.
Does Gritty scare little kids?
I think it starts with the parents and then eventually works its way down to the kids. It has scared little kids. I've seen parents showing videos or pictures of Gritty, and there's children literally crying, running away.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, the Fanatic makes kids cry at baseball games all the time. I mean,
well, that's true.
Just because we all love the Fanatic, he's a scary green monster, right? The Fanatic comes up to Phillies games. I've seen it, and they put on the jumbotron, and the kid's bawling his eyes out, and the Fanatic's like waving his belly. You know,
as a parent, you have to brace your child for something like that. That's something that can be very traumatic.
That's parenting.
So you need to warn them. Hey,
parents.
you might see this. This thing is nice. I think a Muppet is the best way to describe it because it really, the one aspect of Gritty that's the most terrifying is the googly eyes.
Yes.
So the eyes spin in his head, where the Fanatic doesn't have that, does it?
No, he's got the straight eyes.
So that's one aspect of Gritty that differs with the Fanatic. But there's been so many comparisons of, like you said, the Fanatic meets Animal from the Muppets. It's kind of like this hybrid mascot, but I think the city has really rallied around Gritty, and I think everybody's on board.
Tell your Muppets to go inside. So the thing is about the city rallying around, and I sort of have a problem with that whole narrative, is when Gritty first got released here in the city, people were all, I don't know about this thing. It's a weird animal monster. And then once the national media got on him, everybody in Philly was like, oh, yeah, it's so Philly. We love Gritty, blah, blah, blah. And we play into that narrative, which I hate. And it just brought me back to everything about the national media against Philly. Like, I know this is an unpopular take, but I hate that no one likes us, we don't care garbage. I hate it because we just feed into the national media's portrayal of Philadelphia and Philadelphians. And the whole Gritty thing's a perfect example. That giant Muppet is quite ugly and scary, but now all of a sudden we love it because the national media like rammed us for it. And I hate that.
That's the way that we rally around each other here. And it's one of those things where, you can make fun of a family member, but if somebody else makes fun of the family member, you have to jump in.
Right.
That's where you draw the line. So we draw a line there. And I think that that's exactly what happened with Gritty. People started, the national media was down on him. We rallied around him, and that is kind of part of what Philadelphia is. I mean, I know that you hear it too much as far as the songs and stuff like the "No One Likes Us, We Don't Care" song, but you know what? In the end, when we rally around each other, and you're going to see it today in Nashville. I've seen videos and I've seen pictures of what's going on in Nashville, and the Philadelphia fan base has completely taken over the city. And it's pretty remarkable that we can do that, get together, everybody's on this road trip down there. Now, Nashville is a great city to do that, which I've never been, but I'd like to get there eventually. Have you been there?
Nashville? No, I haven't. Actually, I've gone on a rant about Nashville because I feel like it's the new destination for females. Like, instead of going to Florida or, like, New Orleans or, like, a destination, it's wherever you, like, 25-year-old white girl wants to go.
Well,
Sorry, it's just it's basic AF to me now.
There's music.
That's just, it might be an unpopular take with the ladies here, but that's just how I feel.
Listen, music, food. The bar scene is apparently wonderful. I don't know. Has anybody else been there?
You got to get the obligatory picture with the angel wings there. Like, you would get that picture, Nick.
I don't even know what you mean. I don't even know what that is.
That's a Nashville
staple. Is it the same? It's the same as the Chicago bean?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
It's just as famous.
All right,
like,
well,
he's
I've never
standing
heard
against the
that
wall with the 12-foot wings or whatever. You haven't seen those pictures?
I'll go do it.
Go on the gram, dude. They're everywhere.
Listen,
It's
I'll
outrageous.
go do it. It seems like a cool city to be
Josh
in.
knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's horrible. I can't take it.
I like the music scene down there. I like the food scene down there.
I think it's a cool city.
If I could get down there ever, I would. But the point is, Philadelphia rallied around
Gritty.
They rally around each other. They have this attitude, and it's kind of what makes the fan base what it is. This attitude that we don't care what people think of us, but we're gonna rally around our team.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's a mascot, right? Sometimes I feel like we take that too far. I wish that we would throttle back a little bit on the Philly versus everybody, because then we let the national media give us the crap that we feel like we shouldn't get. You know what I mean?
Disagree.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy to me. That's how I look
But
at
I
it.
totally disagree. That's how we like to be perceived. People, I like it when teams say this is a tough place to play. I like that.
We do not like to be perceived as the city that threw batteries at Santa
that's
or
all.
at JD
Listen.
Drew and snowballs at Santa. Like, we don't like that, but they lump all that together. Now Gritty is in with the whole lump of we hit Santa with snowballs and we threw batteries at JD Drew.
That's not true.
That's
a
what they
perception.
do.
Yeah, they're gonna bring up certain incidents that happen for every single city has these incidents. People get killed at Dodger games all the time.
Yeah, but you don't hear about it as much as you hear about us throwing snowballs at Santa.
You absolutely do. I think we're a little bit more sensitive to it, just being that we're here and we're listening to these national media. Tell us all these incidents. Throwing snowballs at Santa Claus is the worst thing that I've ever heard because it happened back in the 50s.
Yeah.
Or whenever it was.
I'd throw batteries at JD Drew again.
So, Gritty, for me, I like him. He's gonna be a major point in the Flyers to get started in the season. We don't know how the Flyers are gonna be this year. Gritty's gonna be a main area of focus to start the season.
All right, so there was something else that happened, and I'm going to see if I can play this for you guys. But this week, very often, people's laughs get taken onto radio shows and turned into, like, clips, right? This might be the worst one, or the best, I'm not sure, that I've ever heard. So you know who I'm talking about, right? Kawhi Leonard. So let me see if I can pull this up. Hang on.
This might be a little long video, but the long and short of it is that Kawhi Leonard is not somebody that we've heard too much from recently. He's very quiet. He's very understated. And when you do have the opportunity to talk to him, so I think this was at the NBA.
Yeah, this was at the NBA off-season meetings here, and here's Kawhi, and just this is I honestly it's like I can't explain it.
In order for me to tell you about myself, I just can't give you a whole spiel don't even know where you're sitting at.
The laugh. So speaking of terrifying.
Like, what in the world? I can't. It's been all over the radio. Actually, on a show that I love, the Lebitard show, they used to have the Hakeem Nicks laugh. That was like their go-to. Now it's the Kawhi Leonard laugh, and they just play it all the time. I can't explain it. That doesn't sound like a laugh.
We've always heard about how he's a different dude, but you never get to see it because he doesn't talk. And so when they go to these media days, you're actually forced to talk. They put you at a table. They put you in front of a microphone. You have to talk to somebody. So that kind of awkward stuff comes out when you're forced to talk to others.
Yeah.
So the social skills with Kawhi may not be there, but the basketball skills certainly are. There was a lot of things going around about there was pictures about how big his hands are. And his hands are probably like 2 feet long.
He's a monster. By the way, what you can't see there, because I just played the clip, is it's a picture of him sitting there with his jersey on, and he looks like he put on about 10 pounds of muscle, and he looks like a monster.
He's definitely going to be a beast, and Toronto's going to be better than they were last year. But
so speaking of that, did you hear Tristan Thompson come out this week?
Yes, I did.
And so that ties right in with the Kawhi thing, because he comes out and he says, we're the best team in the East, 4-time defending Eastern Conference champions, and Philly ain't got nothing to say. Boston ain't got nothing to say. Toronto, we know all about them. Well, let's just take a quick step backwards. You don't have LeBron anymore, so you're not the defending champions. You're nothing.
Wait, you have a second point after that?
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard is on the Raptors now, so he wasn't there when you guys were sweeping them with LeBron. Let's not leave that out of the equation.
Listen, Tristan's a little tied up with some other things, so maybe he hadn't heard that LeBron left.
Maybe he hadn't heard that the Raptors got Kawhi.
It was a pretty brazen statement from him, but I get that in sports that you have to have that type of confidence and that moxie within your team, build that confidence in your locker room, but they all know.
So
they're down in the basement again.
I wanted to ask you a question on this. Because poor Kyle Korver, they talked him out of retirement. I don't know why, to stay in Cleveland. But I had an interesting prop bet. What do you think the odds are that before the trade deadline this year that Kyle Korver gets traded to the Lakers?
Well, whoever LeBron wants is going to get.
Yeah, it's got to be like 1 to 100, right? Because they already need a shooter. I'm surprised they haven't already went and got him.
I really think that he's going to make the Lakers, not just obviously the aspect of him being the best player in the world, but I think that the young guys that he has on the team, I think he's actually given them confidence. I think guys like Lonzo they're gonna look a lot better because he's going to have a lot more options of where to go. I mean, you're going to see a lot more of his shot this year. I think he's going to get that dialed in. And, there's already video out of him making it was like 15 in a row.
Talking about Lonzo? Yeah.
So he's able to work on different aspects of his game now that he has that different presence. And I think that was the original intention of the Lakers picking him up was to – that might be my alarm. I don't know what that is.
You dinging? Yeah, so Lonzo reworked his whole jump shot this offseason. It still has a little bit of a slow release, but he's a big kid, and he's a big guy. He's 6'5", so that's okay. It looks smoother. It looks better. He's going to have to be able to make open shots playing with LeBron, or else he's not going to stay there.
With LeBron on the floor, it takes a lot of pressure off of everybody, obviously.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, there's so much less pressure for him to do well. There's going to be so much less spotlight on him, and especially his father, which I'm more looking forward to, is not hearing as much from him this coming season. But
I kind of disagree. I kind of really want to hear the interaction between big baller boy himself and LeBron. Like, I can't wait. I need to hear Lonzo and LeBron interact. It has to happen.
My only point is that the core focus of the Lakers. We heard about Lonzo all the time, and you listen to Cowherd and Levitard. I mean, he's like the number one focus on the Lakers, and he wasn't really doing that much last year. Now that whole narrative is going to change, where the focus on the team is going to be. It's going to start with LeBron and then trickle its way down. I think LeVar will have a lot less to say now that LeBron's running the show.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I called his dad Lonzo. It's LeVar.
Basketball talk in October.
Yeah, well, soon. I had to bring up the basketball talk because the Sixers, did you see Fultz play in the preseason?
I actually didn't get a chance. I had my first hockey game that night, which I'm still sore from. So that's the reason.
You missed the over-under on your goals too, buddy.
I'm usually talking a lot more with my hands. I can't really move my arms right now because I'm trying to get back into shape. I was at the gym for the first day in like 6 months yesterday, and I'm having a lot of trouble lifting my arms. So, yeah, I did.
That'll happen.
I did miss. I didn't have any goals on Thursday, but it was good to get back out there. And that's a workout, man. If you've ever played hockey,
yeah. I really enjoy hockey. I can't ice skate. I used to play roller hockey all the time. I'm a bad ice skater. Got me.
It's really tough. It's like I didn't remember what that burn felt like in my lungs from. You get in there a couple shifts and you're short guys, which always happens in men's league. You always have 5 guys on the bench, so you're constantly out there. You constantly have to go hard. It's tough.
When's the last time you were on ice skates before Thursday?
Probably 2.5 years ago.
Did you fall like Gritty?
A lot.
Did you fall over?
I fell a lot. Well, and listen, I can skate, but it was really just cutting. Like when guys try to get around you, just kind of picking that speed back up. It's a lot different. And it's going to take a couple games to get back with my skates under my feet.
Yes.
Skate up on my toes.
Yes. You got to go to the rink and just.
We've got a good organization.
Do your eights. But work on your skating skills.
For sure. But I'm going to get back there.
All right. Let's talk Ryder Cup because we just watched the end of the Ryder Cup here while we were setting up. Tough loss for the U.S. They came out hot and they went 3-1 on day 1, and then they just got throttled. It wasn't
even close. And we talked a little bit about the strategy. Like, were they even trying with this strategy? So they sat guys like Ricky Fowler, guys that should be playing every day, to get other guys in the lineup.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about this because, Phil was a captain's pick, and Phil has not been playing well. He finished last in the Tour Championship, right, which is the event right before the Ryder Cup, and he wasn't probably going to play at all until today in the singles. So Ricky, being that Phil and him are, friendly, was like, wow, let Phil play. He got throttled. It's just they're just losing points left and right. The one thing that we did have to say, because I heard the commentators talking about this, is it's a little unfair for the U.S. versus the Euros, the fact that where they are, every single player on the Euro team had played this course. We should have mentioned it. They played at the course where the French Open was held this year for the European PGA Tour. So only half of the U.S. guys had even played at that course before, but all the Europeans had been there before. That is a significant advantage, especially in golf.
Well, I mean, it's definitely one of the reasons that I don't think it was as hyped up over here as it's been in the past when they have it over this way. I mean, with it being in France, the time was weird. I don't think people really got the chance to dive into it that they usually would.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, we were watching it at 8 o'clock this morning. And then, I woke up, it was already on.
But then the lineup that they put out there, so you're way more in tune with this, more so than I am. Yep. What was the lineup that they put out there, and who were they missing, like alternates that could have been in there, beside guys like Phil?
Well, let's take it from the other way, because we talked about Phil, and I think some of the guys you had a problem with, the name you brought up was Bubba, right? Like, do you think Bubba was deserving of making it?
I don't think Bubba's played that well this year from what I've heard. Like I said, I'm not sitting there watching these guys on a Thursday at the whoever cares open, but there were obviously other names that could have been included in there that were not.
Yeah, Bubba didn't have a great year overall, but I still think in terms of U.S. players, like Bubba would always be a captain's pick for me, because he's a guy in this type of format when they play scramble or they're playing one-on-one. Bubba's a tough guy to beat. Like, people have talked about that before, and he has Ryder Cup experience.
So, again, who's left out?
Who else would I have included? Yeah. I mean, all of your top guys are there. So go down the list. DJ's there. Ricky's there. Spieth's there. Thomas is there. Finau's there. Koepka's there. I mean, all of your guys are there. All your Tiger's there. Tiger's playing really well. Like, all of your top U.S. guys are there. It's just filling out that bottom half. And I don't know. Who else would you have put in over Phil? I mean, DeChambeau was there. Like, all of the top players from the U.S. are there.
So
Jordan Reed's there.
So
like, the guys are there.
So I think from what you're saying is that the simple fact is we don't have the talent that the Europeans do. I mean, is that what you're saying?
No, I think that the home course for the Euros really came into play here, and I also think it has a lot to do with pairings, because when you look around at the way that the event works, the first 2 days are played best ball. So it'd be like you and I are playing together. I hit driver, you go up and hit the next shot, and then I go up and hit the next shot. So it's like
best ball.
You alternate shots.
That's my favorite.
It's not best ball.
I was gonna say that's my favorite.
No, we both don't hit a shot. We have to choose. It's alternating shots. So, like, I hit driver, you hit the next shot.
Yeah.
I hit the approach shot, you have to putt. Like, that's the way it works.
All right.
And so the U.S. got to try to get creative with their pairings. Like, they put Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka together. And they're both massive hitters, right? But that they may not complement each other just because they're massive hitters. And the theory that I heard was putting them together their play style's similar, and so since they both are longer off the tee, then they know their distances for hitting their approach shots, and they're used to playing like longer off the tee, so they'd play well together. I didn't think they were a good pairing, and they didn't play well together. So I feel like you should mix those guys up more.
So
That's just my opinion.
Who's ultimately making that call? Is that Furyk?
It was Jim, the captain.
I would have been more comfortable putting Furyk out there than Mickelson.
Well, Jimmy's getting up there in age, man.
I know. I've seen him play at the AT&T a number of years ago. He was a good player.
He's a Westchester guy.
Most awkward swing ever.
Yeah, he does that weird lift at the end of his swing. It's pretty interesting.
So yeah, we got boat race.
US got boat race. So the Euros won. They were doing the chant. Good for them. Good for them. Golf's done for the year. It's sad.
Well, for us too, since it's gonna rain.
What you got, Bobby?
You know,
Bob wants to chime in.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
What you got,
Here's
buddy?
a scenario, right? Say you're like a number 9 team in the nation playing your big rival, and your quarterback's got 170 yards rushing.
Bobby's jumping right into football.
Dude, Bobby is the straight man today.
You're going down the field. You're down 1, game-winning drive. You just got to get in field goal range. And it's 4th down, and you got 4 yards to go.
Do you see where he's going with this, Jack?
Oh, I know where he's going.
Do you take it?
They took.
You know where I'm going.
All right.
What the hell was Franklin thinking?
All right, listen. Like Machine Gun Kelly said, let's talk about it.
He overthought it.
Let's talk about it. So,
It's just
Bob's talking about the Ohio State-Penn State game last night. It was a great game, by the way, number one. It was a great game. Went back and forth for a while. Then Penn State jumps up 26-14. Ohio State comes storming back. They're up 27-26. Penn State's driving. And there's a really awkward scenario that happens here, which Bob was alluding to. So they line up for 4th down. Coach doesn't like what he sees. Franklin, that is, Penn State's coach, so he calls timeout. They come back out in their set, and, of course, Urban Meyer wanted to see what they're going to run. He calls timeout. So it's chess back and forth. They reset after both timeouts. Well, so what I saw on that play, he's always in the shotgun. Even if you notice,
both sides are constantly.
Even if you notice, when they were on the goal line, he never lines up over center.
Even on short yardage,
Yeah.
on short yardage plays like 4th and inches, they're going to line up in the shotgun because you're basically giving your hand there. Where okay, I'm going to sneak.
So what
You think it was originally running play?
No, I think it was supposed to be an RPO. If you watched, he had his running back on his right, and he switched him over with the 3 receivers up top left. And what I think the coaches saw, because I seriously doubt that Chase would have made this call himself, or Trace would have made this call where he audibles to the run there, because if you looked at the defense, all 3 receivers are stacked up on the left, right? And he moves his running back to his left, and then he hands off to him crossing because it looked like there was nobody out wide, so he could get out wide. To me, that was supposed to be an RPO where he could then pull it down, keep it, and throw or run.
I totally disagree with you.
You think it was a design run?
Absolutely, 100%. It was a 100% design run. They were doing the entire second half. That's all they were doing the whole time. And I was posting stuff on Facebook and Twitter. Like, why did they get away from throwing the ball downfield the entire second half? Urban Meyer made the adjustments on both sides of the ball for the second half. So the first half of the game, we saw Trace going down the field, and the threat of the run was still there. He picked up a ton of yards. And in the second half, he was our only offense. I say our, not everybody's a Penn State fan. I'm a little Penn State fan. But he was our only source of offense the entire second half because they were blowing up the backfield, and he was
most
able
running
to,
yards of his career.
So Miles Sanders had nowhere to go. He was getting blown up the entire night. So they completely abandoned any threat of pass, and it was just McSorley run. It was that RPO, but he was never handing it off. He was taking it himself and going up the gut.
I think we're agreeing, but what I'm saying is the play was designed to be RPO, but I think Franklin, because you watch Chase or Trace, you watch McSorley turn his head to the sideline right before the snap, and I think Franklin then called the run there, and he gave it to him. But it should have been an RPO out of that. It was
going to be.
McSorley's so clutch.
It was going to be either
he played really well.
The game. You don't hand the ball off.
No.
On 4th and 4.
4th and 5. There's no way. Yeah, no chance.
It's ridiculous.
And
run a slant. Run a quick slant. I mean, it was open in the middle
of the field. They had the right set.
Because they were running up to blow up the middle.
Let him
just like
drop
they did.
back and decide if he wants to throw it or run for it. Like, that's the handoff there was one of the worst calls I've seen in the last 2 years.
Credit. He takes a timeout. Urban Meyer takes a time. Now Franklin's thinking what's this guy gonna do? Like, I'm facing Urban Meyer. he's got some crazy thing. He read my play, I think. I got to change it up.
Right.
He second thought himself.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
overthought it,
100%.
and it was because Urban Meyer's sitting across the field,
Right.
and he's got respect.
Yeah, I agree.
He made a dumb call.
But I don't think he called the run. I think he audibled to it because the running back
No.
switched from his
Either
right
one
to
of
his
those-
left.
either
and
one
I
of those
think
guys
the
are running
call
the ball.
came from the sideline to an audible to run because if you look at where the defense was with nobody out wide outside because there's no receivers on that side, if he gets around the end there, he's gone. And I think that's what Franklin thought he saw. And audibles to run, but of course Ohio State completely blows up the right side of the line, and it's just a terrible
the other thing
play.
too is that like he was in rhythm. Like the first pass he had was a fucking right on point.
Nick doesn't like when you curse.
Come on,
Sorry.
Nick doesn't like when you
Sorry,
curse.
I'm pissed. I'm a little
Family
mad.
place here,
I'm a
Bob.
little
Yeah.
mad. My bad. Sorry about that. I'm gonna get you guys flagged.
Prof is the Will Smith of podcasting. He doesn't need to curse
You
the
guys are
podcast.
banned from Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, I curse all the time, so it's fine.
But I don't know. Like he's in rhythm. They're driving. Why get him even? Like why cool him off even more?
Well, I'll be honest with
makes
you.
no sense to
I
me.
didn't really like the timeout call there in the first place because the hurry up was what was working, and the
That's what
defense doesn't have time to
He's in
set
rhythm.
right and react. And that's why
pressure situation.
McSorley was able to run so much there because a couple of them were design runs, but the majority of them weren't. He dropped back and then
Yeah.
took off. They weren't spying him, and they were playing a lot of man coverage. Which once the D-backs turn their back to cover the receivers, he can just go. He reads that and can just go because they're not looking at him,
And
right?
McSorley, that's a guy you trust in a game. Like he's fine with that. Like pressure. It's
Oh,
not like
yeah.
He's like when he's got oh man, he's gonna lose it here. It's pressure on him. No, that's where he thrives.
No, I agree. I think you leave
Yeah.
the game in his hands. I totally agree. He's a senior, man. He played a brilliant game, and taking the ball out of his hands there cost them the game.
You have a 6'6" tight end that they hit on a number of different plays.
By the way, the play that got them down there, that was the big, 25-yard ball that he caught in the middle of the field to
what
get
I'm
them
saying.
down
So
there.
have-
You
Yeah.
have them run 6 yards, jump up, and catch a ball. That's what you have to do there. I don't understand what you saw that you thought that was not a design run. I think either of those two are running the ball
Yeah, I
there.
think it was
It's gonna be between Sanders and McSorley to run the ball there. That's what I saw, and I immediately watched it, and that's why everybody's so upset about this play call. If people thought that was actually a pass play or a pass option play, I don't think everybody would be freaking out about it. But that was a design run. I mean, that was off the bat. You could tell they went right to it.
Well, I think the reason I say that I saw it differently is because originally he had the back lined up on his right. And then,
matter.
and I'm telling you, something came in from the sidelines where he shifted him to his left and then turned it into a design run. I think the play was supposed to be
But
a run
Jack, you
pass
think
option.
He took another timeout and then changed it again. So he
Because
tells him,
yes,
takes another timeout.
because of what Ohio State lined up with.
So he changed the play 3 times. I
Yes.
think. Again,
It's
Franklin
over-managing,
messed
right,
up,
it's
and then really
over-managing the
that's
play.
bottom line.
Yeah.
No matter how you look at it.
Listen, I like him as a coach. I really do. I think he's a great college
he
coach.
made a mistake.
I think there's a couple things that makes him a great college coach. One is he's constantly positive. His recruiting, he's done an unbelievable job in recruiting, and I think that they will. I think that they will learn and grow from this. I think he's going to stay there for a while. I don't think he's one of these guys that's. I don't see him as an NFL coach because he places a lot of importance on
Yeah.
building the
better
character.
for younger kids.
Where like
Yeah.
he
than
talked
for
about in his
pro athletes.
post game press conference, it's really making them an elite. It's going from a good program, almost a great program,
Yeah.
to an elite program where they're going to be talked about in that top 4. And they're
Yeah.
not there yet. But I really feel like with his recruiting and the way that he connects with his players, I think that he's going to get them there within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Franklin's a good coach, and I didn't see the press conference after, but he owned up to what I heard from what I understand. So I'm just ranting because I'm in Penn State.
Well,
It was-
and because you're
it was-
right.
It was frustrating.
Right, you're
But,
right. I mean, it's
you know,
it's a
it
bad
happens.
call in
It's
that
not like
situation.
I'll fire him if anyone who says that's an idiot.
Yeah,
But,
agree.
you
I mean, it's
know,
one game. You know,
Now,
it's a tough loss given the position they were
2
in.
years in a row.
By the way, the one thing
2
we
years
didn't,
in a row.
you know, what we didn't talk about, the defense really let them down. They dominated the whole
They
game.
couldn't tackle in the fourth quarter.
No, and what Ohio State
That
did,
actually was what
they
lost it.
they
They
went down the
couldn't
field.
tackle.
Ohio State was down 2 touchdowns, right? So then they ended up having to literally hurry up the offense and they went down and scored in 2.5 minutes their first touchdown, because honestly all they did was line up 3 guys on the same side and they watched what Penn State was doing and they ran that little dump screen, right? And they made one Penn State defensive back make a tackle, and that guy missed for the touchdown. Another guy
it was
missed on
that
the other side.
Fields Castro.
Yep, they literally
had a terrible series.
They
and
said we're gonna
ended up giving up the winning. Well, ended up to be the winning touchdown.
Yep.
One of the
We're
things,
gonna
though,
spread you out.
that
you make a
makes
tackle.
Urban Meyer different from Franklin at this point is that he's been there, he's done that, and he came out and made adjustments. So you saw at the beginning of the game, the first half, Ohio State was getting beat on the line on both sides of the ball, on the defensive and offensive line, especially on the offensive line. And then when they came out in the second half, it was completely solid. They were completely solid. I mean, they did have Haskins scrambling around a little bit, but you know what? They were able to make that adjustment where they had Dobbins out, ready for the quick pass. They were able to get the ball into their playmakers' hands instead of they knew he was never going to be sitting there comfortable in the pocket.
And that the 2-point conversion obviously is huge that they miss after they go up, and I'm starting to get confident, like, now they're going to be up more than one score. It's a 2-possession game.
By the way, that was a bad play call on that play too.
Just going to ask.
Yeah, that was a
bad play call.
That was a bad play call on the 2-point conversion. Yes, it was.
After that, it was like, all right, we're up. Now we're good. They came right down and scored.
I thought that they I looked at this a little bit differently when I actually looked at the clock, but when they scored the touchdown and they could have gone up 7 and they decided to just kick the extra point to go up 6. I thought about that too. And I looked at the clock and I'm like, there's still time on the clock. The way the game's been going,
I was okay with it
the way the game was going, it was a defensive battle. I mean, neither team was moving the ball too well.
Yeah.
But unbelievably, McSorley has 175 rushing yards on the night.
I mean, that's what
unreal.
You get McSorley out. And then if it was somebody else, you understand what he's thinking. But it's like, dude, have some trust in your quarterback. This guy, he's a stud.
It was there all night, especially in the second half.
After we got talking about this, where does he go in the draft? Is what I want to know.
Oh, you want to talk about his draft
does
prospects?
He get drafted?
So we were talking about this week. So when Dave and I Weber went up for the Pitt-Penn State game last year, was at Penn State, and after the game, Saquon and Trace showed up at the bar that we were at, and I stood next to him. He's my size. He's 5'10", $180. He's a small kid. McSorley.
6'2".
He ain't. I stood right next to the guy. He's not.
He didn't look like it. He's solidly built.
Sure, but he's a small guy. I mean, it's tough for guys under 6 foot to quarterback in the NFL, right? He's not a big dude. I worry about his arm strength and his size at the next level.
That's the thing.
You think they're going to draft him, convert him to try to be like a slot receiver, then you practice squad 2 years out of the league, and then that sort of thing?
I honestly think that might be where he's heading. I don't see him as a big-time prospect, to be honest with you, but we see that a lot with these college kids that, Tebow especially. I think he's got a better arm than Tebow, and I think he's more accurate than Tebow is. But, at the same time, he does have what it takes to play in the NFL, but not necessarily he's not going to be, drafted to be your next franchise quarterback.
Oh, no. But I think someone takes a chance on him in the late rounds. Why not?
Yeah, possibly. It depends on the situation.
I mean, he could be like he's so athletic.
He's very athletic.
You could see him being like, Bill Belichick drafts him, puts him as like a little slot receiver. Boom.
That's a stretch. I mean, look, you look at guys like
he's not going to be an NFL player.
I don't. I mean, he might play in the league. Look at guys like A.J. McCarron and other guys hung around the league for a while. So
A.J. McCarron's a lot different than McSorley is. A
And
lot
the
different.
Yeah.
Bulls, dude. Yeah.
He could get drafted, but I don't see his NFL prospects as very high.
That's the problem.
So we broke down Penn State. There's a lot of other games. I don't know if you want to jump to another game. But
let's talk about the other
Bobby.
big game of the night.
That was bothering Bobby for a while.
Thanks, BK.
Glad he was able to pop that in.
So the other big game of the night was the Stanford Cardinal. Sorry, wait. Why is it so weird? The Cardinal.
Because it's a color.
Well, how come their mascot's a tree if they're a cardinal?
I have no answer for that. But a cardinal is a color.
Okay.
It's a color. It's not. You're not talking about the bird, so it's not the cardinal.
No, it's a giant weird tree. Speaking of weird mascots, that thing is scary.
I like that one.
Looks like a walking Christmas tree.
I'm a fan.
You like the cardinal?
I'm a
the tree?
huge fan of the cardinal.
Huge fan of the tree.
Definitely.
All right. So Stanford traveled to Notre Dame.
Not as much of a game as I thought.
Well, it was most of the time, and then Stanford lost it late. Pick 6.
Yeah, once that pick happened,
6.
it was the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tale of two halves because the first half was very tight, and Notre Dame really dominated the second half and stayed on top, and then that pick 6 just put the nail in the coffin.
They are 100% a different offensive team with Book behind center.
He looked really good last night.
100% different team. He's composed. He can run the ball if he needs to, but he finds he's very good at going through his progressions and finding his guy. Speaking of bigger tight ends, they have another tight end that he was finding in the back of the end zone constantly. They looked good. They looked like they're moving the ball fluidly, and it's a much different look than when they had Wimbush back there. And their defense, we know their defense is good.
They look really good. But so let me ask you,
are they a top 4 team?
Let me ask you the counter to this now, because I heard this a lot last night. I'll credit Rosillo on Twitter. So Stanford.
He was listening today. He said he was going to be listening.
I appreciate that from Ryan. So Stanford should have lost that game last week to Oregon, right? Agreed? If that running back doesn't fumble that ball, that game's over. That's a first down.
Absolutely.
Over.
Justin Herbert looked like a #1 draft pick in that game.
If Stanford doesn't go into that game undefeated, ranked at where they were at 7 yesterday, I actually had Notre Dame, which is kind of crazy looking back at the game, right? But if they lose that game to Oregon, we don't think as highly of them as we do. So then them going into Notre Dame and getting throttled at the end of the game doesn't seem as weird and doesn't seem as much of a quality win. So does that really prove to you that Notre Dame is for real?
Yeah, because you can only go off of wins and losses. That's the only thing you can go off of, and ranked opponents. And we looked at Oregon yesterday. They beat Cal. They look strong. They look even stronger today. So
yes, everything in that scenario lines up good for Notre Dame because Oregon won. Stanford was undefeated. Yeah, I agree with you.
Let's be clear. I think Stanford's a really good team. I really do. I think they have some offensive weapons there. They have all these tight ends are like 6'9" now. They're all 250 pounds. The receiver, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, is probably the best receiver in college football. He just goes up and gets it.
He's very good.
And they also, I like Costello as well. I think he plays well. He didn't play as well last night, but what we saw from him in the second half of the Oregon game, I think he's a good quarterback. I think they have the makings there of a good team, but definitely not. They're not going to be now, obviously, in your top 4. That's why we need to open this thing up. We say it every single week. We need to open this thing up to at least 8 teams to make it a legitimate. Because you know what, we're never going to see that again. They're not going to go up against Notre Dame again.
Right. So, okay. So
the fact that it's in Notre Dame as well, that plays a factor.
Okay. Well, so the question then is, if we're talking about where does Notre Dame rank, let's talk about Clemson struggling with Syracuse, right? Because if you're talking about your top 4, which I think get released in 2 weeks, obviously Bama's 1 and Georgia's 2, right? We're not going to argue that they're your top 2.
Nope.
So now you got to fill in 3 and 4. Ohio State's sitting at 4 right now. They won the game against Penn State, so you're not going to drop them, right? But do you feel like sliding Clemson out for maybe another team? Maybe Notre Dame.
Not right now. Because we have to see and obviously what happened yesterday is, if you guys saw anything about the game, Trevor Lawrence, who is their true freshman, is supposed to be the stud, and he's a big-time prospect. He goes out in, the second quarter?
Yeah.
Goes out in the second quarter
kind of his neck.
Now, they're obviously down before that, but I have a lot more confidence in Trevor Lawrence bringing them back before they did get back. They got back in the fourth quarter. Not late. It was probably there was like 2-3 minutes left. That they got back in the game and end up winning the game.
Yeah.
But if Trevor Lawrence is in there, I think they turn things around a lot more quickly. So to see what he does when he comes back, and let's not act like Syracuse is a cupcake team.
No, they're not.
They're a good team.
They're solid.
So, I don't necessarily kick Clemson out just yet, but there are a lot of things that are lining up here, especially for LSU. If LSU can. They have the toughest schedule coming up, and I have written down who they have coming in the next few weeks. So we're going to see what they're actually made of. They've already had a lot of tough games.
Yes.
Beat Auburn. Who else did they beat at the beginning of the year? They beat Washington. No, not
they
Washington.
Beat,
Auburn beat Washington.
No, they beat. Who else did LSU play?
Point is,
we can look it up.
Point is, over the next few weeks, you're gonna see if LSU is a pretender or a contender. So on the 13th of October, they have Georgia, which is obviously a humongous game. If they keep that game close, they don't necessarily have to win that game. If they keep that game very close and it's not a blowout, they're still in somewhat of contention if you have a couple losses for other teams here and there. On the 20th, they play Mississippi State, another ranked opponent. And then on November 3rd, which is a huge game, they play Alabama. Now, if they lose 2 of those games, if they lose to Georgia and Alabama, I don't think there's any way they get in.
No.
But they have to. They
got to win one of them.
They've got to boat race Mississippi State, which is going to be tough. Now, looking at Clemson's schedule coming up, the only ranked opponent that they have coming up is on the 17th of November against Duke. So let's see if Duke hangs out in the top 25 for that long. I really don't see them doing that.
We talked about this last week with Clemson. The ACC looks like it's really down this year, and so it favors Clemson to just run the table. By the way, LSU beat the U week 1.
Miami.
Yeah,
exactly.
they beat Miami, and then they beat Auburn.
Right.
So
they have good wins
look
already.
at this murderer's row, though, dude. Florida's down, but
that's exactly what I'm saying. So
Georgia comes to LSU, but then and Miss State comes there. Wow, and Bama comes there.
It's
they get all
back to
3
back
of
to
them at
back.
home.
Right.
That's really favorable for them. Not that that's not a tough schedule, but it's nice that they get them both at home.
So that they can make something happen there. Now let's look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame has no other ranked opponents on their schedule.
No,
not one. Does that play in their favor? I don't know.
Well,
because that's what's going to be factored in.
You have to look at it this way. Look at what we just talked about. They have to play each other in the SEC because Bama's going to have to play Georgia. Georgia's got to play LSU, and Bama's got to play LSU. And so what Notre Dame has to hope for is they beat up on each other. They all come out with 1 loss because that really will favor Notre Dame then.
Right. And now let's look at some other teams, though, that have a chance to take steps forward.
Well, Oklahoma's raising their hand right now.
That's my next team.
Yep.
So Oklahoma has Texas on the 6th, Texas Tech, and then West Virginia, who they play. If they win those 3 games,
yeah, they're going to – I mean, if
those are huge wins.
If they run the Big 12 undefeated, yeah, I mean, you can't exclude them. No doubt about it.
So that's I think LSU and Oklahoma can really make a statement. LSU's not going to win all 3 of those games. No shot. They're probably going to lose, too.
I mean, honestly, the most important game for them is Bama because if they beat Bama –
Disagree.
They're ahead of them.
Disagree. I think the most important game for them is Georgia. If they keep it close or beat Georgia – then I think they have a great shot at getting in. You're not going to be expected to beat Alabama in that situation.
Let me look up something real quick. Keep going.
So let's look at Oklahoma. They can make a jump. They're in the 6th spot right now. Well, they were in the 6th spot last week. We'll see what they come out with on tomorrow. So if you go ahead and beat Texas, Texas Tech, West Virginia, that's quite a resume there. Those are all ranked teams that you have coming up over the next month and a half. So move on to Ohio State. They have Michigan State and Michigan, 2 teams that I don't know if they're going to be there in the top 25 at the end of this thing. Especially Michigan,
Michigan did not look good yesterday.
No, and they haven't looked good. I don't know how long they stay around there in the top 25. I know that they were up around 14, something like that. But these schedules play a big factor into it. I think LSU has the most to gain. But I definitely think they have by far the toughest schedule.
You want me to tell you why beating Bama is more important than beating Georgia?
Please.
Because if you look at, and this is why I wanted to pull up, so if you look at the SEC, okay, Georgia's in the SEC East, LSU's in the SEC West with Bama. So if they lose to Georgia, right, and they can beat Alabama, then they can still make they can make the championship game.
But what I'm saying is that's probably not going to happen.
And I don't think anybody's going to beat Bama,
but the thing is, it's not expected to happen. So that when the goal is not to play in that conference championship game, and we've seen it for years now. The goal is not to play in that conference championship game. As much as it's nice to hang a banner and things like that. The goal is to get to the Final Four.
Sure,
that's what it is. So, and at this point, we don't have a formula. We don't have a formula of we don't even know who's picking this thing.
No.
So what I'm saying is they have the most to gain from this schedule, but it's also it's like you said, it's a murderer's row. It's really going to be tough sledding for LSU to get through. Can they do it? Yeah, I think they look like they're that good a team and they're that resilient that they can. But the most important swing game there is Georgia, keeping it close or winning.
There's certainly a good enough team. It's just, like you said, it's the schedule, and we also assume a lot of things because we're 4 games in. We assume that Oklahoma can run the table, right? Once these teams start tacking on a loss, we assume Notre Dame can run the table. Those are not safe assumptions, right? Because every week you play a different team. Look, Clemson almost just lost to Syracuse. Like those things can happen, and that completely changes the complexion of how we look at this. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Any other games you want to talk about? A note: West Virginia. We talked about they beat Texas Tech.
Yeah, Greer's looking like he's going to be one of the front runners for the Heisman. Who's your Heisman favorites at this point that you like? How about Murray from Oklahoma?
Yeah, he looks really good.
They hung a 73 number or something crazy yesterday on Baylor.
They went off yesterday. Baylor looks really bad. I hate saying it after 3 games, man. Like it bothers me. I mean, honestly, it's really one guy at this point. It's Tua. Tua's the best player in college football. I don't think it's really a question. His numbers are the best. He has no interceptions. He's got like 14 touchdowns. I mean, dude, the guy's unreal.
I think Greer's going to give him a run. I think Tua will definitely be up there. I think that Bryce Love, we saw him get hurt last night, walked off the field, not sure what that injury was, but he's going to be up there as well. McSorley might get up there. I'm telling you, he's carrying that team, and that plays a big factor. Remember, this isn't NFL pro style football. This is college football.
His pro prospects to me don't have anything to do with the Heisman. I don't know, man. With McSorley, even like yesterday, he ran for 175 as his career high. He only threw for like 240. I like him. He'll probably be like 5th or 6th or 7th in the voting, but I don't see any ray of hope that he wins it.
I think Murray will be up there as well. So I think there's a handful of like 5 guys right now that are going to be up for. They might throw Arcega-Whiteside in there just to get a wide receiver in, but
yeah.
Not that that's not warranted. He is that good. I really like.
There's there's not a ton of wide receiver prospects. I don't feel like, but I'll have to defer to Mel Kiper on that one.
So yeah, those were the main topics that I wanted to talk about. I also want to talk about last week. So if you guys listened to the podcast last week, I did have 3 college picks. I went 2-1, and I was really upset by the last one. It was Northern Illinois. I think they were. I don't know if they're at home or if they're at Florida State. So they had a pick. They had a touchdown that would have put them. That would have tied the game. The kid stepped out of bounds prior to catching the touchdown. He was the first one to touch the ball. After he got in bounds, touchdown's called back. Florida State scores a bomb touchdown. And I lose. Minus 11 or plus 11.
That's a heartbreaker.
Terrible. So that was my one loss. I didn't do so hot in NFL, but we can talk about that later.
All right, let's move to NFL because we're 40 minutes from kickoff here for the 1 o'clock games. So let's start here. Let's start here at home. The Eagles traveling to Tennessee to play the Titans. Short line here, Nick. First reactions. Eagles -3. Does that feel short to you, or does that feel right?
No, that feels about right. That feels about right for where the Eagles have been. So we're looking at an Eagles team now that is not the complete team. We haven't seen the complete team yet. We're still not going to see the complete team. I don't know what's going on with Alshon Jeffrey. That's going to be a major factor. I don't know what's going to go on with Jay Ajayi if they're all going to play. I understand that there's a fracture in Ajayi's back, and he's basically doing pain management at this point.
That's
so
right.
He's going to be on the field. How much he's going to see the ball, we're not really sure of right now. But I think to set that line, I think that they're doing a little bit of hindsight looking back at the Eagles. And when I went through the matchups and how this game looks, they do look like the same team. When you look at the numbers, when you look at the rankings as far as defensive rankings, and you look at the offensive rankings to this point. Now, again, that's two games without Carson. It's a much different team with him, but the numbers say that these are very similar teams.
So I'll tell you what bothers me about this line in that game is that I think the Titans are not very good. I think that offensively they're really bad. Defensively they seem to be strong, but the thing is with them offensively, like Mariota constantly is hurt again, and they're just shuffling guys in and out. They're a mess. They just cut Rashard Matthews, their wide receiver.
Right.
Like Delaney Walker's out for the year. So they are really thin both at skill positions and quarterback because Mariota can't stay on the field. And they beat the Jaguars 9-6 last week in just a typical total AFC South garbage game. There's another one of those this week we'll talk about. But so for me, even though the Eagles haven't been pushing on all cylinders, I see this more than a 3-point line. It's a little scary that it's that short, right? Because, I'm going to talk about later like home dogs and how they've been performing, but I don't know. What concerns me the most about this game is the Titans' defense against the Eagles' offense, because obviously we talked about the struggles that the Eagles have at the skill positions and just scoring overall, right? They have not been rolling, and the Titans do have a very stout front seven.
Right. Well, what's been said for years and years and years about games like this and about the NFL in general, it's really not who you play, it's when you play them, right? Mm-hmm. So when you take a look at that win off of Jacksonville, okay, so it was a win. It was 9-6. It's more of a baseball score than anything. It's not a huge win, but a win nonetheless against a really good opponent.
I mean, it's a division game for them.
But if you take a look at who Jacksonville played the week before, they're coming off a huge win against New England.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get them off of this high. That's very important. We are now getting the Titans off of this high beating Jacksonville. They're making comparisons to Jacksonville's defense to our defense. our defense is actually ahead of Jacksonville's at this point. We are the number one, I think it's rush defense in the league at this point, which is a big factor. Now, they do have a couple backs, Henry and Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis does a lot of things. He's very versatile. So containing him's going to – I'm more worried about him more so than Henry, who's more of your north to south, downhill runner type back. Dion Lewis does a lot of things. He gets to the outside. Their screen game's going to run through him. It's going to be a lot focused on him, I feel like, because of the issues that you mentioned with Matthews being gone now, with Delaney Walker being out. He was probably their go-to receiver.
Oh, yeah, he was their best receiver.
So just to give you a look at the offense for Tennessee, though, they're currently ranked 30th in points per game at 16.3. That's a low number, okay? So, but the Eagles, at the same time, they're not far behind. They're coming in at 23rd, 19.7 points per game. These are teams to this point that have not put a lot of points on the board. What's the difference today? Carson Wentz is back today.
Right.
And we saw last week against the Colts, a Colts team that I don't think is very good, but there were no issues whatsoever with Carson's mobility, with him being comfortable, and we talked a lot about how this is such a mental thing coming back from an injury like that. I didn't see one sign of him thinking about the leg, worrying about the leg. In fact, I was nervous a lot of times because he was diving head first the same way that he did in L.A. To get first downs and things like that. So I see him coming back each week getting stronger, and I think this is a good game for him to kind of spark that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, honestly, the Titans, I'm picking the Eagles big. I think the Eagles win this game because the problem with the Titans is if Mariota stays on the field, is you're just waiting for that turnover, and he will turn the ball over. He does that, and if he can actually stay healthy and stay on the field, it's will he cough the game up for you. And I think the Eagles' defense, with their front four and the way they get pressure, they're very opportunistic, improved secondary, blah, blah, right? We can go through it, but I think that the Eagles are going to handle this game.
Well, I think it's going to come down to the running game, definitely, and controlling the line of scrimmage. So when you look at the defense of the Titans, they do not have a great rush defense. They're 23rd in the league, to the Eagles being the number one rush defense in the league. If you can kind of impose your will on the line, run the ball against them, it opens a lot of other things up for Carson. You open up that RPO game that we talked about that's so important in Peterson's offense that we saw a lot of last year at the beginning until Carson got hurt, and then saw it continue with Foles. But I think that opens up a lot of things. You're going to see a lot of RPOs and then hitting the tight ends.
Yeah.
Just like they did against the Colts. We saw a lot of passes downfield to Ertz and Goddard, and you're going to continue to see that. So I'm confident that they can establish that run based on how poorly the Titans' rush defense has been thus far. Once you establish that, then you open up other aspects. So they've actually been pretty good in the pass game. I think the Titans are 8th in the league right now in the pass game. But, again, if you establish the run, that opens different avenues for Carson.
Yeah, and I actually agree with your assessment with the tight ends. I expect big days out of both of them. I think we should see a lot of 2 tight end sets because we're a little thin at receiver, and I think those are 2 great weapons in the passing game. And if you're able to run the ball, you're able to soften up the middle, right, because they're bringing guys up. So I would like to see them more involved. I definitely want to see Ertz continue to play better. He's kind of started slow, some drops. He
started slow, but he's still getting his catches. He's still getting his yards, and there was a lot more to be had. I think he left a lot on the table. There was a couple balls that went through his hands last week. Yep. I've heard this narrative about him all the time, and I've never really played into it, but I did take notes on it last week when I'm watching. He's on the ground a lot. He is on the ground a lot. Yeah. Even at the pylons. I mean, he's going down before he makes the catch. I don't know. We'll continue to watch that. It was a slick field. It was kind of a mess last week. But he's going to continue to get his targets and have Goddard on the other side. People were saying that you couldn't tell the difference between him and Ertz, especially last week. They if they didn't have numbers on their jerseys, you wouldn't know the difference.
They're built the same. If you can't see the number, you can't tell the difference.
So it's an important thing to have 2 guys like that where you can go to 2 tight end sets if you need to. And to have those receiving threats down the seams, down the middle of the field. So the other thing I wanted to say real quickly about the Titans, so all these numbers that I just listed, these are numbers that were put up against. You look at week 1, they lose to Miami. Okay, so we know Miami it's a facade right now, right? They're not a 3-0 team. They're 3-0, but they're not a 3-0 team, are they?
I don't think so. I actually have notes about the Dolphins this week, and we're going to talk about them. But
Okay,
no,
so
I agree with you.
We'll
I
get
think
into
they're
them a little bit
frauds.
further, but I think we can both agree that any team led by Ryan Tannehill is not going to be the powerhouse. So that's the first game that they play. The second game, the Titans go up against the Texans, and we've seen nothing from the Texans so far this year. They've lost some games that they've been favorites. You look at them against the Giants last week. If the Giants are able to put those kind of points on the board against you, I'm not that impressed with that win. Okay, the last one we talked about it, 9-6 against the Jaguars. Ugly game. It's going to come down to whoever can outlast each other on defense.
Yeah.
So all these statistics that I just gave you. Take it with a grain of salt because it's all about who they play.
I agree with you.
And from the offensive side of the ball, obviously Jacksonville has a good defense, but these other two teams that they're playing, they're not world beaters.
No, and you made that point about it's who you play as well, right? I mean, they're 2-1, but do you think the Titans are a 2-1 team?
No, and that's the thing with this season early on. You have we just talked about the teams like the Dolphins.
Let's talk
they're
about
not
that.
going to be around.
So let's run down some of the games here, because we can always jump back and forth. But so the Dolphins are going to New England, right? And clearly, to your point, the Dolphins may be 3-0 in their record, but Vegas definitely doesn't think that they're for real because they're going to New England, who is 1-2, and the Patriots are 6.5-point favorites at home.
So they're included in my picks today.
That's
a
bad sign.
So if we both agree on this, you should probably take the other side.
That's
of it.
a bad
but
sign.
I do have New England today, given 6.5. They're at home against Miami. They always play. I feel like when they go to Miami, now don't quote me on this stat, but I feel like when they go to Miami, Miami always plays them pretty tough. But I think at home, I think you're going to see a double-digit win.
I agree.
Especially with them being 1-2 at this point.
I
Losing,
agree.
coming off of a this is one of those instances where it's a bad time to play a team.
This is
coming off of a loss
Yes.
on Monday night to Sunday night
to the Jags. It's a scheduled game.
to the
Lions.
Lions.
The Lions. It's a scheduled game. New England's 1-2, and the Dolphins are 3-0. You don't think the Dolphins are going to go 4-0, and you don't think New England's going to go 1-3. It's in New England, right? That's a division game. I feel like they are going to punish the Patriots.
For sure. So that's definitely in my plays this week. I don't know if you want to get this started, get into some plays here. If you want to dive in, or if you wanted to start off. I started off last week.
We just got the it's getting tougher to hear across there. Unfortunately, the problem is the speakers are as loud as they go, and with everybody talking on that side, we can't get them up any louder. So it's just the chatter. Unfortunately, it's good. It means people are here. So, sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
No, I wanted you to start off your picks. I started off last week. I gave all my picks right in a row. I stole some of your thunder. I'll let you go first.
Well, all right. So I was going to go through games and then talk about what's intriguing and then picks to me.
Yeah, we can do that.
So we both already revealed we're on the Patriots at 6.5, right? So we're there. Some other games that are intriguing to me: the Bengals at 2-1 are going to the Falcons at 1-2. That's in Atlanta, and Atlanta's a 3.5-point favorite. So that's an intriguing game to me.
Also in my plays.
That's an intriguing game. The Bills are going to the Packers, and that's a big line. That's a 9.5-point line in Green Bay. So they've been fairly inconsistent, right, the Packers, and that's a big number. The Bills killed the Vikings last week, so that's an interesting sort of dichotomy, right, coming off a big win.
That's who I would want to play the Bills this week.
Right, so that's a good one. I don't want to talk. The Texans and Colts are playing. That's a pick game. That's the garbage AFC South game of the week.
Don't watch it.
We're not going to deal with that. The Jets are going to the Jags. Jags are -7. There's some intrigue there for me because I think the Jets stink, and the Jags
I thought
are
that's
coming
a
off
short
loss.
line too. I'm looking at that line,
Yeah.
and that's actually in my plays this week as well.
Yep. So that's good. And we got our resident Buccaneers fan is here, Mr. Biddy. The Bucks are going to the Bears. How about this one? The Bucks and Bears are both 2-1. The Bears are favored at home -2.5. That's an interesting line.
I don't know why I've been so attracted to the Bears. I think it's their defense, and I think it's mainly because of Khalil Mack. But I've been attracted to these Bears plays every single week. So last week I got crushed because Josh Rosen, your boy, comes in, throws an immediate pick six, which would have put that line over the top. Obviously, there was a flag called back. Somebody lines up in the neutral zone and kills my pick. So I should have gone 5.
I had the Bears.
I should have gone 5-3. Ended up 3-5. But
I had the Bears too. The Bears. It's Bob Swarsky filling in for my brother Bill. He's recovering from his most recent heart attack.
Let me give you.
What's that make for you now, Bob? That's a baker's dozen there, Bill.
Are we doing an SNL shtick here? One of the games that I wanted to to get into, and it's also in my picks. This is one that stood out to me when you look at the line and you see something is weird, right? And I don't know if they're playing Monday night, but it's Denver's at home against the Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
The Chiefs. So the over/under is the biggest of the docket for the week.
Intriguing.
54.
That's the biggest on the entire week?
Yes.
Okay, that's very
biggest
intriguing.
on the entire week. And Denver, the Broncos, are +4. You would think that number would be astronomically.
It's at 3.5 right now. I just checked it this morning.
So it's down even further. So it's crazy. I would think that with the amount
a short line.
With the amount of points going up on the board for the Chiefs each week, that would be at least a double digit.
I agree with you. It's a very short line. That is Monday night, by the way. You were right about that. So that is a very intriguing game. Another intriguing game, the Browns at 1-1-1 are traveling to the winless Raiders, and the Raiders are favored at home -2.5. That, again, is another line where I'm going, really? That seems like a pick to me.
Well,
feels like a pick.
That's what I'm staying away from. Okay? and here's the reason why. Because we saw an adrenaline-filled Baker Mayfield. We're going to see another adrenaline-filled Baker Mayfield, but at a certain point in the game, that adrenaline wears off. He came into the game cold last week, and that's when he got that pop. He was at home. It was a big game for him to step into and show everybody what he is.
Sure.
This game is going to be way, way more telling in what he is as an NFL quarterback, because you have a team that's going to be scheming against him for an entire week now. Okay, we didn't see that when he was playing the Jets. Now there's a team that has him on film. They're going to be able to watch the things that he does. Now, don't get me wrong. I really like him. I'm going to be watching that game. I like seeing him play. I think he does a lot of things. I think he's an accurate passer. And I think he now has the weapons to get some things done. You know what I mean?
So
where the Browns of the past, this is now like we're partially a Browns podcast at this point. We talk so much about Baker Mayfield. But
what up, Cleveland?
I'm
you know I'm not a Baker
I think he's going to do
guy.
well.
You know I'm not a Baker Mayfield guy. I don't think that he's going to be a long-term success. I think we're going to see a totally different game today from them with a team that has a week to prepare. On the flip side, the Raiders have not been very good overall, and so without a pass rush, he may flourish in this game. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious. I'm very curious to watch this game. It's a 4 o'clock game. It'll probably be one that I pay the most attention to in the 4 o'clock games, just based on the readout here. There's one more game of interest to me in the 4 o'clocks.
Preach.
And it's the largest spread on the board today. That's the artist formerly known as the San Diego Chargers. The Niners are coming to L.A., and obviously Jimmy Grapps is out for the year. So the Chargers are -10. That's the largest line on the board.
I took a look at that too, and you probably take the Chargers there for sure. Too much unknown. You don't know how Beathard's going to come out and play. Obviously the chances of the 49ers doing anything this year are shot. But you know what? That opens up some opportunity for, and we can maybe talk about this a little bit for the Eagles, some opportunity to make some moves to bring in some pieces.
Sure. Niners are going to be, well, I don't know if they sell too hard. It's just going to be a down year for them waiting for Jimmy.
I don't know. It's early enough on in the season where he goes down that you can take a look at bringing a guy like Foles in. And I think that, I know that they have picks to give out there.
Yeah, they do.
Why not collect some picks? You start hoarding picks up, and then you take a look at Seattle. Once Seattle hits the schneid that they're going to hit, they obviously ran into a brutal Dallas team last week and destroyed them. That was in my plays. Lost that one. But if you can hoard some picks and then flip them to somebody like Seattle, who that's all they're looking for. They're looking to bring in picks. They're looking to build this team up. If you can flip that for Nick Foles. And Earl Thomas wants out anyway, so.
Yeah, well, Seattle we talked about them last week. They sort of hit that cap wall where they couldn't afford to pay everybody, and now, the party's over, and who's the last person stuck holding the bill?
Now
everybody's out
of town.
Now
with McLeod being out, I think that's a move that you seriously consider. I mean, obviously, anytime you can get Earl Thomas, it's going to be one that you're going to try to do. But, he's going to be on a 1-year contract, and you're going to have to pay him, and I don't know if he wants to stay here or not, but those are risks that you have to take to win consecutive Super Bowls.
Okay. Let's get into the picks, and let me give you my philosophy on my picks this week. Last week, well, first off, the Dolphins and the Browns are a collective 6-0 against the spread. Both of them are 3-0 ATS right now, okay? So I look at that, and then I look at week 3, home underdogs were 5-1 last week. Okay, so that tells me it was an upset week. It was a dog week, especially with the home dogs. So now when I look around, I don't want to. I'm going to go the opposite, right? Because I think that the NFL goes week to week, and now everybody be looking for the home dogs as the plays. I think it's the other way. So I never do this. But leading my pick, we already did New England -6.5. My next pick, Eagles -3 in Tennessee. I'm taking the Eagles. I like the Eagles. I typically don't ever pick the Eagles because it's a heart type of deal. But I think there's value there in the line.
Mushed. You mushed.
I think there's value there in the line. Come on, Greeny. Why are you picking my team?
You mushed us.
Come on, Greeny. Don't pick my team. So I want to take the Birds in Tennessee. I think they cover the 3. I think it's a touchdown plus win. So.
All right.
Come on up to the mic.
Step up.
Come on up to the mic. We have a Giants fan in our midst.
Yeah, step up to the mic. No cursing.
G-Man.
Here
No
we go.
cursing
Here we go. All right. You know what? Actually, let's talk about the Giants game real quick because I have this down here for the rest of the picks since we have a Giants fan with us. So the Saints going to the Giants. That's that home dog again that I've been talking about. Saints are -3, so the Giants are at home +3. How do you feel about that as a Giants fan?
I feel really good about it. Last time the Saints came to New York, I think we won 20-16. We were able to neutralize Drew Brees pretty well. Now they didn't have Kamara or Michael Thomas, but Janoris Jenkins takes away Michael Thomas.
Those guys don't matter.
they matter a lot. But I think Janoris Jenkins takes away Michael Thomas. I think he's a big disappointment today. And then you have Snacks Harrison in the D-line. They got to neutralize Kamara. So I think Kamara is the difference maker, but I think the pieces are in place for the Giants to sneak a win here.
So I actually like that. What I like to see, right, for the Giants at least here is you get the Saints outside. And unfortunately, it's actually really nice up here today, but you always want to muck that team down, right? They're a dome team. They're built for speed. You can get them outside and slow them down. It's beautiful up here in the Northeast, which I can't believe it's not raining, right? So that doesn't play into exactly what the Giants want.
Yeah, Breeze has always been a different quarterback on the road.
Yes.
Not different, horrible, but different.
So the question really is going to be this, what was thought of before the season as a vaunted Saints defense, right, which hasn't really lived up to that bill, is can the Giants get something going offensively against that team? Because I feel like the Saints are going to score, right? You can try and limit what they're going to do, but they're going to score. It's can the Giants attack back and score as well in that game? That'll be the key to me.
Well, and I think you saw that last week at Houston, where the Giants completely changed their offensive look. They had Saquon Barkley on the outside, which enabled them to get off quicker passes to the other wide receivers and even utilize Saquon deep. He had that one 21-yard catch where jumping in the air. I don't think people match up with him either. So you have him, you have Odell. Ingram's out, but you got Shepard filling in. I just think if they can keep that wide set where it neutralizes the pass rush and the deficiencies of the O-line, they can win this football game.
There was a key piece that that got injured in the secondary of New Orleans. Who is that?
I don't know if I saw
me.
that.
I don't know what's going on with Lattimore. I mean, the guy was a stud last year. I don't know why he's not effective.
I think that Vikings game gave them all a little bit.
Oh, it was Patrick Robinson. Patrick Robinson
Okay.
got hurt.
All right. So that'll play a factor, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of a shorter line than I would expect.
I agree. Again, it's that home dog. Like if I look at that game before here, I'm thinking Saints 5.5, right? Seeing it down at 3 tells me that Vegas is leaning more towards the Giants there.
I think a lot of people are looking for a shootout today, but I think you're looking at like a 21-17 game.
Well, and that's what the Giants need, right? You don't ever want to get into a shootout with the Saints because late in the game they're just going to open it up.
Well, we saw it last week with Atlanta. I mean, that was the shootout of shootouts.
You do not want to get into a shootout with the Saints.
No.
So,
No.
thanks, Alex.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
Good
having
talk.
me.
Talking to you,
buddy.
man.
Appreciate it.
So, speaking of home dogs, my first play was, like I said, Denver +4 at home versus the Chiefs. Crazy one. I know that's going to be weird to a lot of people, but that line is way short and is pretty interesting and telling me something.
You're taking the Broncos, huh?
I'm taking the Broncos +4.
I like it. All right, so my pick, we talked about it, the biggest pick on the board, my next pick, the biggest line on the board is the Chargers, and I'm hammering that. I'll lay the 10. Because I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to do anything. The Chargers really need to get back on track. The Niners are going to be dead in the water for the rest of this year, and I like the Chargers to really dominate this game. I'll lay the 10. I'll take LA.
Good pick. My next one is New England. I talked about it a little bit earlier. New England given 6.5. I think this is a double-digit win for them at home against a Miami team that will soon be exposed.
So my next pick, Bidster, come up here. My next pick, my dog of the week. That dog of the week is those Buccaneers, baby. Plus 2.5 at Chicago. I got the Bucs outright, baby.
I don't like that one.
Fitz Magic coming back to form. He actually didn't play that bad last week. One bad turnover, that's it. I like the Bucs to beat the Bears, baby.
I actually think that he gets mauled. I think that Fitz Magic gets mauled this week, and I think you're going to see Jameis Winston in this game today.
Fitz Magic Bucs all day. Dog.
I'll prop bet you that you see Jameis Winston in this game today.
I'll take it.
My next pick is a road dog. So I like Cincinnati plus 3.5 on the road versus Atlanta. It's down from what I think it was at 5.5, and it's down to 3.5. I like that swing a lot.
It's at 3.5.
AJ Green's playing. I think that we're going to see a lot of these teams, like we talked about. I think this way, even with the Chiefs, is over the first 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season, you see this high-powered offense. This is what the Bengals have constantly done. This is how Marvin Lewis continues to get contracts. Is they come out, they get their 8 wins, but they get them early on in the season. Then the back half of the season, they completely stink. And you're going to see this again with Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati comes out hot. They get a big win, potentially outright.
Okay, so
on the road.
So my final pick, we're going to go head-to-head. My final pick is Atlanta minus 3.5. I like the Falcons at home. I think it's a good situation here when you look at the records where you get Cincinnati and Atlanta in a dome. Atlanta needs the win more than Cincinnati does. So I like the Falcons here. I think they're going to spread out that Bengals defense.
Well, I really think you're wrong.
So I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take the Falcons.
I think you're wrong. So I got one more bonus pick for everybody out there. My last one is another home dog. No, actually, they're at Jacksonville. I like the Jets plus 7.5 at Jacksonville.
Okay, so
that half point's big.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's monitor that because I did check this morning and it was at 7 even. So what Prop's telling you is if you can't get it at 7, buy the hook, buy the half.
Hook it.
Buy the hook.
Hook it horns.
So he likes the Jets at the Jags.
The Jets. I like Sammy D. Come off that loss from Cleveland, and I like them. I like them to cover today. Not necessarily win, but I like the cover.
Jets.
So some final thoughts on the Eagles.
Go for it, buddy.
I wanted to get into some key matchups here because obviously if you're here to watch the Eagles game. So there's some key matchups to watch today. The first of those being Nelson Aguilar versus Adoree Jackson. So this is a matchup that you're going to see. I don't know if they're going to have Aguilar more in the slot with Alshon Jeffrey getting back. Again, look how much he's going to be playing. But I think he gets in there. From what we're told, this was more of an illness. It's not necessarily the injury. It was more the illness, like a 24-hour bug type deal. That's what Doug says anyway. So we're going to see. If he comes back in, you're going to see more of Aguilar in the slot. You're going to see him go against Adoree Jackson. He's been kind of our bulk receiver at this point. There's going to be more of a refocus on the slot in terms of his position. He's not going to be on the outside as much, though I think he did a good job last week. Jackson's the guy. He's covering the slot today. He's coming off a concussion, so just watch that. Brandon Graham going against Jack Conklin. So Jack Conklin is the right tackle for the Titans. He was the 8th pick overall in 2016. He's coming back after an ACL tear. This is his first game back. He tore his ACL last season, week 4 or 5, something like that. So I think Graham has a big day today. I think it's going to be huge for him. He doesn't have any sacks yet this season. Look for Brandon Graham to have at least 1 or 2 sacks today.
I like that. So I wanted to add on to your point about Aguilar. So what I noticed last week is bringing Jordan Matthews back since he flourished here in the slot. In the beginning of the game last week, you saw Aguilar out wide a lot more, and you saw Matthews in the slot. Towards the end of the game, they flipped that. They threw Matthews out wide and put Aguilar in the slot, and the offense looked better. So I think Doug has seen what he needs to see in that. I look to see Matthews to contribute more, right, because he's now another game back in. The guy was sitting on his couch, right, for all intents and purposes. So another week in conditioning, into the offense to come back. And I like now that he'll be set out wide, Aguilar in the slot the entire game. So I look for him to have a big day, to your point, staying in the slot all day. I look for Matthews to contribute more, getting back in rhythm with Wentz. And I'm looking for more contributions from the tight ends. And also, to your point about Brandon Graham, Mariota's hurt. If they can get pressure on him early and often, he will turn the ball over. He's going to be looking to get rid of the ball as quick as he can. He can't be getting hit. So I just think if they can get pressure up front with their 4 he'll turn the ball over, and the Eagles can really dominate that game. They can jump out early and just smother them.
Completely agree, and I think he's my player of the game, Brandon Graham is. There's one more matchup, and this is the matchup that scares me the most, and I think you can probably predict this, just given his season thus far and the way he played against the Colts. He was the majority of the Colts offense, to be completely honest with you, and that's Jalen Mills. So I was not impressed by Andrew Luck at all last week. Most of his yardage came on underthrown balls that Jalen Mills just happened to grab onto somebody in PI. And, I think it accounted for like 70 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
So the matchup between Tywan Taylor today and Jalen Mills. So we already mentioned Rashard Matthews is gone. He cites no targets or snaps. He says, I'm not getting enough targets. I'm out. I don't want to be part of this. So he's done. Taylor is the home run type guy. Taylor is the quick dude that if you get him into space, he can break one. And that's what scares me about Jalen Mills in terms of his tackling and penalties.
No.
That's a key thing to watch today.
I agree with you. So that has been the Achilles heel thus far, the Eagles defense, right? Is that deep ball, those deep plays. It hurt us against the Bucs. It hurt us again last week, although we were able to hang on. But the thing, you make a great point, actually, and this is a thing about the new NFL that you have to think about when you equate what you think the deep ball of. Part of the deep ball is the PI, right? If you can throw 10 deep balls, complete 2, and get 2 PIs, that's success, huge success.
Right.
So,
well, in some ways, I'd rather you take the penalty than the touchdown. But you know what? It's getting to a point where if you're contributing that much to the other team's offense, when they're not doing anything by themselves, it becomes a problem. And we're getting there with Jalen Mills, where we're getting critical of that type of stuff and those type of penalties. I think you're going to see a couple more penalties today, just given the speed of Taylor and him just trying to keep up all the time.
I agree, but I do want to defend him a little bit because a Jim Schwartz defense, the cornerbacks and safeties are very reliant on themselves because a safety will come up and take a tight end because he likes to bring pressure.
Right.
He likes to bring pressure, and he likes to leave them guys on an island. And listen, these are big-time players, right, receivers, so it's tough to cover them one-on-one all the time. I don't want to sit here and say I don't think Mills is a good player. He's had his struggles the last couple weeks, but he's also been tackling very well in the run game, so I'm okay with that. I just, Schwartz's defenses, and this has always been a criticism of his, is that they put a lot of strain on your secondary, and so sometimes those guys can get exposed or just put in situations where they get beat. So,
well, I certainly hope he has a bounce-back game. If he does, I think that they have no problem with the other Tennessee offense. Again, Deion Lewis, a versatile guy, but he's not, he's not going to kill you. He's not going to kill you if you're able to contain, and that's what we need to do today. To wrap things up on my end here, I see Carson taking a big step back in this game. I see the offense going off more so than they have. I'm not looking at a crazy high-scoring game. I'm calling it, though, 24-13 Eagles.
I like it.
What do you got?
I got 27-14 Eagles. I think that they really, and I think they dominate the game. I think it's more like 24-7 the entire game, and then a lot of field goal late. The Titans will get a late touchdown, and that's it. I think they easily win this game.
Perfect. Well, I think that about wraps us up, Jackie.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. We're 10 minutes to game time, so we don't want to sit here and yabber while everybody's trying to watch the games. By the way, for the Giants fan and the Buccaneers fan here, there is the ticket here. So there's a Buccaneers fan is here as well, yes. The Bidster is here, so that they have the ticket here, so you get to watch all the games here at Screwballs as we hang out. Really want to thank everybody for coming out. Of course, Nick and I really, really appreciate the support. By the way, if you notice the shirt that I have on, these are the From the Hill t-shirts. They're here. They're finally out. There's a white version as well. If you're interested in t-shirts, talk to me, talk to Nick. We have them. But that's it. That's all I got. Nikki, what do you got?
No, just really appreciate everybody coming out. I'm really excited to hang out, watch the games with you, and see a big Eagles victory today. So thanks very much, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. That's it. Prof, Swags, out.